So Neal, to start off today, I mean, I love how Angel Studios has become known as a crowdfunded movie and TV studio platform driven by everyday people. Everyday people, I'll say that again. I think that's such a neat thing about Angel Studios. As a studio head, what made you believe that you could operate a successful TV studio from Utah, not Los Angeles, not Nashville, in Utah, be publicly funded, and be driven by everyday people? Your thoughts on that?
We had a comedian who came to perform at DriveBar who said they had such a marvelous experience performing in Provo, Utah. And he asked us the question, why wasn't this done in New York or LA first? Should have been done a long time ago. And we don't really know the answer to that question, but because it hadn't been done, we decided to do it.
I mean, it's certainly not a traditional blueprint to build a studio. I mean, with crowdfunding and then it being in a locale that's not big, bright lights, big city kind of a thing. So that's been really fascinating to me to kind of watch as this has grown and built up. Tell me a little bit about your background. I mean, how did you get started and what drew you into the television and film industry?
That really relates to your last question. Why we would do this, why we would start a movie studio. We as brothers grew up in Idaho, working on farms, and our TV got 2 channels and maybe 3 if you got the hanger in the antenna pointed just right. And our escape from farm labor was to watch a movie, and our mother grew up in that community, and she was very careful about the kind of content that we would watch as a family. And so as we grew older and then we had children of our own, we started sensing that same feeling that she had with us, being careful with content, and we loved great stories, but we wanted our children to be able to experience great stories with us without having to set aside some values that were important to us. And it just seemed like that the Hollywood, which we had loved for so long, and the things that they created, it just got further and further and further and further from what we hoped to see for our own family. And so we decided to do something about it. We did some research and asked other parents in America what they felt and whether they would want. So the first way we approached is we said, hey, let's take the Hollywood movies and TV shows and let's just skip the one thing that you don't want your family seeing together, and so that our little kids don't repeat some of the coarse language or some of the unacceptable behavior. So let's just skip just that stuff. And if we do that, we thought, well, we'll attract an audience of people who feels the same way about this, and then we'll be able to create content better than Hollywood for those people. So we started this company called VidAngel at the time, and we learned that about half of parents in America wanted the same thing we did, which is a big market.
Yes, it is. It's enormous.
And we didn't know what it would be outside of the country, but we started the company in 2013, and it just made sense for us to do it because we wanted it for our own children.
Did you have any background in television or media production at all? I mean, going from the farm to TV studio, there must have been something
when I was a student,
cultivated this.
When I was in my master's program,
okay,
I took a production class.
Aha.
Because I was in instructional psychology and technology, and I took a production class. So I got a little bit of a sense for how complicated video and film production can be. But no real background.
That's fascinating, because usually there's years of training and apprenticeship and before you start up something like that. And it feels like you guys just had this great idea and then just said, well, these surveys say this is what's in our heart, let's chase this. And that's what I find so fascinating about Angel Studio.
And I think what's interesting about it is as we've approached it, we've just naturally solved problems in terms of how we set up our contracts for creators, how we greenlight projects.
Right.
We done it in a way that makes sense to us, but we don't have any of the baggage of how it's supposed to be done.
And I think that's crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah, or important for you guys.
Yeah. And as we've been learning recently, like we hired a consultant from Hollywood to come and explain to us the Hollywood model, because the creators will come to us and they say, we don't understand what you guys are doing. And we try to explain it to them, and it's hard for them to understand it. And so we hired someone to say, look at our model, look at their model, and tell us what we've done here. And it's been really fun to go through that process.
I bet.
And learn how much better our model is for the creator and for the audience than the traditional Hollywood model. So now we're realizing that coming at it with a new perspective just is better.
And these are exciting days for Angel Studios. I mean, you have just received, and I'm going to say this, nearly $50 million, 5-0, let's be clear on that, 5-0, in funding from the investors behind Elon Musk and SpaceX. How did that all come to pass? I mean, I don't know if I have a word. I'm going to use it. Awesome. That's awesome.
So GigaFund backs companies that they say they believe in their founders, that their founders are going to stay around, and that their companies are going to change their industry, their entire industry over the coming decades. And they've watched us for a time, and they saw us go through the Disney battle and survive it. And during the Disney battle, we had to file bankruptcy. But we emerged from bankruptcy, and all of our shareholders were made whole. And then we switched directions as a company. We decided to go into original content, which, as I said before, was kind of our original goal.
Right.
So we're going to go into original content, and then we sold off the VidAngel service so that we could focus on what we're doing and not have the legal liability of dealing with the other studio's content. So they watched this whole process occur, and they said, these guys have staying power, and we like what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that they have an element of them that they care about liberty and about the free market, and so do we. And there was a match there, and we're really excited to have partners like that. It's a $2.5 billion fund, and they have the capability to look for, I mean, they're backing Elon Musk trying to go to Mars. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, most people look at what we're doing, they're saying, well, how dare you take on the whole system? The finance and Hollywood and everything. You're trying to take all this on. And they're just like, oh, we're trying to go to Mars. What you guys are doing? So it's great to have partners that have that kind of vision, because what we're trying to do is pretty audacious, and we're excited about people helping us do it.
Well, out of this funding, I mean, your plan calls, correct me if I'm wrong, calls for more than 300 projects to be released over the next few years. I mean, that is ambitious with a capital A. I mean, this all starts this spring. You've got an animated movie coming out called David. And then, of course, Andrew Peterson's Wing Feather series, which is a really cool, my son has read those books, a great set of books. I mean, these are exciting times for sure. So what types of projects are you looking to produce over the next few years with these funds?
That's what's so excited about Angel, is Angel, its name is after the people who back shows, the angel investors. So people who want to create something with Angel, they don't answer to a Hollywood studio. They don't answer to executives at Angel. They answer to the audience. So they bring a torch. That's a short film or a pilot. And then they submit it so that the audience can review it. And then the audience gets to decide whether it has that spark or magic to it, and whether it amplifies light. And so they're the gatekeepers, not us.
Speaking of spark and magic, I mean, standing as one of Angel Studios' biggest success stories is The Chosen, a TV series based on the life of Jesus. From your perspective, what's been the key to success for that program? It just seems like since last summer, we'll say, it's just exploded and spread its wings and taken off. I mean, tell me about that show and your experience with it.
Well, we got to remember that everything seems like an overnight success, but
that is
it's
true.
After 10 years of struggle and failure generally when you go into the real stories. You were at NRB. 3 years ago, we came to NRB to show episode 1 of The Chosen.
I was there. It was in Anaheim.
Yes, it was
I remember
in Anaheim.
that. Yes.
I got one person to attend the very first showing on the first day of NRB. And then the next showing, we got 2. And then we got 4. And by the end of it, I don't know if you went to the last showing, there were 100, 120 people.
When I went, I felt like there were like probably 40 to 50 people. Maybe it was the 100.
Okay, one. maybe I'm even exaggerating our last one.
Was going all that week. I remember about it. Hey, have you seen that show?
Yeah. So we
it's
were
really cool. You can go over to this ballroom.
It was
to take
discouraging to have one person in the beginning, but it was encouraging to see the growth through the show. And then last year, everybody knew about The Chosen when we came to Dallas.
That's fantastic.
So,
have you been surprised by how The Chosen has caught on with people? Or did you always feel like, yeah, this is going to do really well? You just had that in your heart. You felt that.
Well, when we watched The Shepherd, it took us into another world to just see the birth of Christ through the eyes of a farm boy. We're farm boys, and we saw that, and we said, that needs to be made. Hollywood's never going to make it, and we don't see how churches would make it with their limitations. And so this is what we built this company to do, is to make something like this. And so we got behind Dallas, and Dallas had been through a really rough
the Gavin Stone movie had been a rough patch for him.
And we had been sued by Disney, and we were having an existential threat, and the two of us coming together, something really beautiful
and out of
came
the
of
ashes, something beautiful has risen up. That's great. Changing gears a little bit. I mean, it's been said that investors believe that Angel Studios will transform Hollywood because you are a disruptor of sorts. When I hear the word disruptor, I often think of someone who's trying to stir up trouble. I know that is not the case with you guys. But in this case, being a disruptor is about making change in a manner that's healthy, and in the long run can make a system better. Your thoughts on that, on the concept of being a disruptor of sorts, but in a good way?
We love what we're building. We love the people who are helping us build it. There are 60,000 people who have now backed the shows that we're working on, and there's 10,000 people who invested in Angel. And there's something about the power of the people to make a change that they need to have made in society. And there's a street near my house that had burnt lawns, dilapidated shutters. It was really run down. And little families started moving onto that street and buying the homes. And even though they didn't have a lot of money, there are now flowers. The cars are washed. The lawns are green. They're carefully clipped. And there's the pride of ownership on that street. And that's really the Angel difference, is that the artists and the audiences are owners of what's happening. And when they are, they just put more care into what's in the final product. And we think that's going to outperform what the traditional Hollywood system does over and over again.
And I think we're starting to see it right now, but I think there's so much more to go, so much higher to go.
We'll look back in 5 years and just say,
exactly,
wow.
Yeah.
And what will happen is that with that change, it only took 19,000 people. That's not that big of a group of people. No. What size did you say your town you grew up in?
I grew up in a town of 1,600 people.
So 10 times the size of your town.
But that 19,000 is not a big town.
No.
It's an average run-of-the-mill town in America.
And now they've made a show that has been viewed over almost 400 million times. Wow. And it's translated in 50 languages. It's impacting the entire world. Yeah. And it's 19,000 people.
It's changing lives, too.
Yes.
For the better.
So we'll go back and we'll say, okay, because these moments in cultural history and media history will change the narrative moving forward.
Right.
And society will be different in a decade because of it.
Yeah, that's great. Another project that's receiving a great deal of favorable attention is DriveBar Comedy. It's a show featuring simply family-friendly, clean comedians. That concept's been tried before, but it's never achieved the level of success that DriveBar Comedy has so far. I think it's over 1 billion video views it's had already.
A few billion, yeah.
A few billion,
Yeah.
okay. So what is it about DriveBar Comedy that seems to be resonating with audiences?
It comes back to the audience. So when the comedians go to perform live in Provo, they get rated. And they have to be rated well enough to be able to be published online. And then once they're published online, there's a rating system there that rewards, gives them bonuses because the content is funny for everyone. It doesn't cross lines where it suddenly becomes offensive to families.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, I watched a few comedians recently, last week, when I was kind of preparing for this interview, and it was just outstanding. The comedy was great.
Yeah.
I had a great time watching these clips, and I felt guilty that I was technically working, but I was sitting there watching this fantastic comedy stand-up, and it was great. So that's an exciting show for me because I think it's badly needed because there's just so many what I'll call blue comedians that just kind of feel like they can drop bad language wherever they want, and the themes can be, appalling at times. And it's great to know that there's a program like this standing in the gap, so to speak, and offering what I envision comedy to be. So,
and it's growing the market. It's
Yes.
the fastest growing digital comedy platform in the world. And when you take funny comedians, sometimes clean comedians get people think they're not very funny.
Right.
And then funny comedians go too blue. Mm-hmm. You put them together in a system where they're helping one another. The audience is helping the artist and vice versa. It's a bigger market because of that.
Yeah. What other Angel Studios projects are you excited about on the near horizon?
Well, we feel like Tuttle Twins couldn't come at a better time.
Yeah.
With everything that has been happening, we did 2 weeks to slow the spread and gave up fundamental liberties of that. It astounds me that we gave up so many liberties. Now I was part of it. I didn't know what at VidAngel we gave away free subscriptions to those who practice social distancing because we thought this was going to be a terrible pandemic, which
Right.
it was. But is it worth the cost to liberty? Those are questions that we have to ask ourselves as a society over and over again. And Tuttle Twins is super funny. Parents find themselves watching it with their kids, and the principles that are taught there reiterate the free market, doing good to your neighbor, private property, and all these things that societal success are based on.
Yeah, that's great. As we've been discussing throughout our conversation today, crowdfunding has become a highly viable means to produce quality, family-friendly video content, material that families should feel good about. But what's up next for that? What do you see for Angel Studios a year from now, 5 years down the road? Is crowdfunding still going to be the central core of how you create content, or is there something on the horizon that you're pursuing that's different?
It's very important to us to stay connected to the audience. We don't want to repeat what happened in Hollywood, where
Right.
Hollywood were great filmmakers who were making films that inspired faith, inspired love of country, inspired goodness towards your fellow men. And over 100 years, that all changed, and it became cynical and very real. They're very good at the filmmaking business, but it lost that connection to what everybody needs. Everybody needs stories to give them hope.
Yeah.
And the only way we think we continue that is because we maintain what we started, which is that the audience gets to have the final say.
Just as an aside real quick, what I find really neat about the crowdfunding, I had the opportunity and the honor to be on the set of The Chosen, do a set visit for season 1. And it was
You were there in season 1.
season 1. It was filming on a sound stage in Dallas.
Yep.
With Dallas,
Yep.
Dallas and Dallas. But what was neat, a lot of the people who had funded The Chosen were actually in the series.
Yes.
They were there as extras or had small parts, and it was just really fantastic to meet them and get to know them and just hear them share their heart for the series and that they were able to be a part of it. And that goes to, everyday people being part of it. And that's, I think, a big part of your success is that very thing, as we've been talking about. Final question for you. I mean, after people have viewed one of Angel Studios' programs, whether it be The Chosen, DriveBar Comedy Hour, David, that's coming out soon, as the CEO, what would you like your viewers to get out of the viewing experience? I mean, what's your greatest hope for the organization going forward?
Well, I feel like when we come to this earth, just when you look at a baby or you read a toddler a story, there's a light there and there's an excitement for life. And if we can help not just the CEO, but the community that's building around Angel, if we can help amplify these stories of light, then people will remember. They'll remember that.
Yeah.
And they'll also remember that they can actually change the outcome.
That's great. Again, I'm going to use the word again. I am awe of what you guys are doing. I just think it's so unique, it's so different, but it's so impacting and important. And it's important work to do. Thanks for being with us today, Neal.
Thanks for having me on, Chris.